For starters, I think it's appropriate, since 100 years ago the Great War was being fought, to make special mention of the service that those members served during World War I. When I was young, I clearly remember watching World War I veterans proudly marching in Veterans Day parades. My own great-grandfather, although unfortunately I never met him, served during the Navy during World War I. Recently I spent a week up at a conference at Great Lakes Naval Station, the same place he took his training during World War I, and was able to walk on some of the same grounds that he did. And to me that was a very special moment in my military career, knowing that I was someplace where my great-grandfather had also served. He went to aviation mechanics school, and on the buildings there were still pictures of the young aviation apprentices working, and I just could imagine that one of them was my great-grandfather. So it was kind of a special experience for me. A little bit about World War I. It was an absolutely devastating war. The conflict saw over 65 million soldiers take up arms from 16 different countries. Of those 65 million, 8.5 million were confirmed battle deaths. Another 37.5 million were wounded or missing. For the United States part, with their entry into the war not coming until 1917, the U.S. mobilized a total of 4.7 million service members, which resulted in 53,000 battle deaths and 320,000 total casualties. Today, all of our World War I veterans are now gone, but they're not forgotten. November 11th is the day that World War I ended, and now we mark it every year on our calendar as Veterans Day. Unfortunately, with their passing, they have taken many of their undocumented stories and experiences with them. One thing I like to do is go out and actively encourage young people to go out and find veterans and talk to them. I actually spent the previous hour over at Edison School in the 6th grade talking to students about Veterans Day, its significance, and encouraging them to go out, seek a veteran, hear their stories, and understand what's going on. But recently I've had an experience that has kind of given me a divergent opinion on that. And I'll share that with you real quick. Yesterday I was a guest lecturer for a military history course at the university. I spoke about World War II in the Pacific and the major campaigns and battles. What I was amazed at was how few of the students actually knew anything about it. I think it's absolutely sad on our education system that that's become a probably all too common truth. December 7th may be the day that will live in infamy, but it's sad that for so many young Americans it no longer bears any significance. Names like MacArthur, Nimitz, Patton, Halsey, Puller, and LeMay now have no special meaning to them. I spoke to the history professor after I finished, and he told me that it's a sad reality that each year students enter college knowing less and less about history, and particularly military history. So today I'd like to go the opposite way and encourage all the veterans in the room to get out and help educate our youth. Don't only share your experiences with them, but also take the time to teach them about our country's history and how our history and how the wars have shaped the nation. Additionally, I encourage you to talk about the values that are common to all service members, those of duty, honor, courage, and sacrifice. Join me in encouraging our youth to serve our country. In my day job, my current posting is that of the Western Illinois University's Professor of Military Science. Part of my job is to indoctrinate soldiers with the Army values and help prepare them to deal with the uncertainty of the future. What that future looks like and how to prepare them is something that I struggle with, because the truth is, even after 13 years of continuous conflict, the international environment has yet to stabilize. Even this day, we have troops actively engaged in Afghanistan. To highlight this, an area that I myself spent a year in, Mosul, Iraq, is currently under ISIS control. The situation there remains fluid, and it's interesting for me to watch the international situation develop in a place that I knew so well and called home for a year. Today, the world is a different environment from which the one my great-grandfather lived in. During his time, crises were developed between developed nations, and their enemies were clearly marked by the uniforms they wore. There was an expectation, though often unrealized, that all sides would follow the basic principles of war as outlined in the Geneva Convention. During the conflicts of the last 40 years, the military has often been called in to serve as a regional stabilizer and often entering uncertain political and military situations, with our enemies largely blending into the urban and rural populations. I'm sure that the Vietnam veterans amongst us in the room today are well aware of the threat that I'm talking about. This changing world environment, uncertainty of the future, was recognized by the Army, and several years ago began a study of the characteristics of what the leadership requirements would be in 2025. So to start with, we had to figure out what do we know about the world in 2025. Although we can take nothing for a certainty, we do believe, based on history, that two things will remain true. That there will be a continued armed conflicts in the future, which will require future service members to deploy and stabilize the environment. It also appears that the situation in 2025 will be one of increasing complexity and potentially more dangerous than the one in which we currently live. To deal with the uncertain future, the Army has identified 4 critical traits of future leaders. The future leaders of 2025 must be adept at critical thinking, creative thinking, problem solving, and be ethically grounded. The Army conducted this study to identify leadership traits so the Army could work these traits into the education and curriculum of our students right now. And it's a curriculum that we follow in the ROTC program. We also use these traits when we look for and select the future lieutenants. So who are these people? Who are the future? Who are the people that we need to bring our values to? Well, they're actually people that you already know right now. And they're people that you could go out and influence right now. The future leaders of the Army are currently in America's classrooms. The majors of the year 2025 will be responsible for all the operational planning for divisions and will be serving as executive officers and operation officers. They're currently the seniors that are in my own ROTC program. The company commanders and senior non-commissioned officers of 2025 are right here in McCombs High School. The platoon leaders and sergeants of 2025 are currently in the 7th grade, and the privates of 2025 are currently in the 2nd grade. My own son, Ryder, is in the 2nd grade, so you can imagine why I take the future of officer development very seriously, so that he can someday expect to have great leaders over him. For my part, it is a pleasure to train the future leaders of the Army and of the nation. Western Illinois ROTC program has approximately 270 students who participate on a daily basis. Our mission each year is to develop and commission 20 officers to take on the uncertainty of the future and to take the place of the veterans who served before them. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to come out and speak this morning. And I'd like once again to thank our veterans for their service to our nation and encourage veterans to share their stories and experiences with our future generation. If any of you are interested in sharing your experiences, I've got some great opportunities to come talk to my students over at Western. So if you'd like to come talk to the future leaders of 2025, come meet me and we can make arrangements so you can talk to them. Thank you very much for having me and enjoy the rest of your veterans.